Okay, so for this tutorial, what we're going to do is create a 3D flyover scene with some terrain and kind of use the camera to, in a couple different ways, just to make it look like our camera is flying through, maybe similar to Star Wars, Death Star, Trench Run. So what we're going to do here is first we're going to go up and create a shape, and we're going to create a plane. Okay, and now you could do relief, but from what I've heard, the plane actually works better. It just gives you more options, more control. So what we're going to do next is we're going to click on this one of these boxes so that we can then just rescale this thing. So I'm just clicking on a box, and then that activates the scaling. So I'm just clicking on the ball then to make it larger. The other thing we're going to do is go over here to properties, and we have depth, width, sections, width, and depth. We're going to actually change the section width and depth to 100 for both width and depth, and just hit enter on those. What this is going to do is this is going to allow us to apply that terrain to these sections. If you leave it at 1, it won't work. I know because I tried. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go here to this little drop down, and we're going to go to displacement. We're going to add displacement to our plane. Okay, you're going to see it adds in over here in our object browser. And then what I'm going to do over here is this is my displacement properties. So what I'm going to do is create a new texture. And I'm just going to save it to my desktop as Bickus texture 1 and hit save. I'm not going to change anything else. Okay. And right now, obviously, nothing's been applied. So I'm going to go find Bickus texture 1. What I'm going to do is actually open that up in Photoshop. Okay. And what we're going to do is actually create, I can show you while kind of Photoshop opens up here. What we're going to create is something along these lines. Okay. Where it's a black and white image. We're going to use clouds. Basically, anything that's light on here is going to be flat. Anything that's dark is going to be raised. So what we do is we go in here, and we want to make sure first our colors are black and white. Okay, and this is that actual Bickus texture that we're using. So what we're going to do is go to Filter. We're going to go to Render and Clouds. Okay, and what that's going to do is kind of create like a random texture on there. I could do this if I don't like that one for some reason, and go in and redo it. Okay. I can also go to my layers, and I can duplicate my layer. And let's see, if I go to multiply on one of those and that little layers drop down, what it did was it intensified that layer. So now that this would be really bumpy because it's way darker. You could also go in with just a black paintbrush. That one's, the opacity is down a little bit. And you could draw shapes. And that would actually be raised as well. So anything that's like super dark is going to be raised. So what I'm going to do is just save that. File save, Command S, hit OK. Hit OK. And I'm going to then exit out of this. Or I'm going to minimize this. And now I think because this just kind of like live updates, it should actually apply it. So let's see if this worked. Load Bickus texture 1. If not, you can just hit load and then go reload it up. And you can see right away this thing has started to create texture. So what we can do is over here on our offset properties, you can see there's my texture. I can then bump this up. Okay, so it's creating it, making it more textured. So what I'm going to do then is go over here and just kind of hold on Option and scroll on to see this whole thing. All right. Other thing you can do here is you could add other objects. So, okay, I want to add a box. Whoa, that one is way too large. I want to add a box to this thing. I'm just going to shrink it up and make it skinnier. Pull it in, and maybe I create a series of buildings. And when I do that, what I could do here is an easy way to just copy these is edit copy and edit paste. And actually paste it directly on top. I want to just move it. Okay, so edit copy, edit paste, and then I'm just going to move it. And then I can change some of these so they're all kind of a little bit different. And that's kind of up to you how you want to do that. So you could cover your entire terrain with buildings or objects. There are some ways to add textures. I'm not going to talk about that right now, but that is something you could potentially do, is add textures and colors. It would actually, let's see if actually we can get this to work, just for example. So I want to say I can just drop it directly onto one of those. Did it load it? No, it didn't load it. It may actually not load it until we go to render this out and see if that would work. Oh yeah, you can see it right there, loading the texture. I'm going to exit out of that. So you could do that, but I guess you don't see it on there. So that's something you could do is go add texture or add materials. And this, okay, if I wanted like stone and I wanted stone to be my entire plane, you can see it kind of change the color. But now if I want it out to render it, it would allow me to see that. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna actually keyframe my camera. So I have to get my animation. Sorry. So that's my render manager. I just had to go stop that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go to this little square thing to get my four squares up. And basically what this is doing is giving me 4 different looks of my terrain or my image. And I'm just using an option to kind of drop my camera down. So what I'm going to do here is kind of show you how you can actually keyframe this in a couple different ways. So I'm going to go click on my camera and I'm going to create a keyframe point at 0. And then here I'm going to move to maybe like 5 frames. And I'm going to just scroll this in. So I'm just using my wheel, and then I'm going to hold on Option Control and move my camera up and create another keyframe. So let's see over on that top left, you're seeing what the camera does. Okay, what I'm going to do next then, I'm going to move it up, and I'm going to show you a different way to control that camera. So here what I'm going to do is actually position my camera using this screen. You can see it's active because it has a red box around it. So I can rotate it, I can move it in, I can pull that camera up, and then create another keyframe. So let's see what that looks like now. And this top left viewer is actually what my camera is really seeing. So there we go. Now I want to maybe on the next part, I want this thing to go down. So I'm just scrolling back there. I'm going to move this down, move it forward, down again, create another keyframe. Let's see. Okay, and if I want to get out of that scene, I hit those 4 squares. So it's called single and quad view. And then let's see what that's what my camera then looks like. And then the last thing then, how to export this, I would just go to my render video and I would let this render out. And then when it is done render, you can see the visual. This might take a little bit. Is I would go to save and I would save it out as a, it would give me the option as an H.264 file, and then I would save it out. So, and that's it.